Hi, welcome to episode 233 of the Corner of Knit and Tea. My name is Laura. I'm also known as Fluffy K on Ravelry, Fluffy Kira on Twitter and Instagram. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, and that's where this episode and every episode show notes will be. And I have an Etsy shop called The Corner of Knit and Tea, where I sell my handspun yarns. Finally, we have a Ravelry group called The Corner of Knit and Tea, and we are just finishing up on one craft along, and I have some ideas for a few others, and Tour de Fleece is lurking around the corner. So let's get started. Hi, how are you? It has been a wild couple of weeks since I have talked to you. Today is Monday, June 17th. As you can hear, I am a little bit under the weather. I actually feel fine, I just don't sound so great. So let's start with kind of a recap of the last couple weeks. When I last talked to you, I was a few days off from leaving for Ireland and Scotland. So my husband and I went to Ireland with a company called Race to Adventure, and they are a company that specializes in adventure races. And I don't know why this part didn't click with me before we left. I knew I would be doing a 5 to 10K every day in places around Ireland. It didn't occur to me that it would be adventure racing, so wandering through mud, swamps, and puddles, and bogs, and up and down the sides of cliffs, and it was just kind of an all-out endurance push yourself, which, as you know, is not really my thing. So that was quite interesting, but the upshot is that I had a blast on our vacation. So just to give you a little recap, we flew to Dublin. We left the 31st and got in the morning of the 1st. We spent the day of the 1st in Dublin, and I did find a yarn store called The Constant Knitter. And I did purchase some things for some friends, as well as a skein for me and a skein for you. I did not bring that with me today because I don't have I had already announced prizes for the current knit along, so I will bring that back and show you when we have a knit along or a craft along or something going on that I can deliver it as a prize to you. But know that the prize coffers have a skein that was hand-dyed in Ireland. The yarn store was lovely. I wish actually that I had bought more. I restrained myself because I thought there would be more on the trip, and as it turns out there wasn't, which I'll get into in a little bit. But it is called The Constant Knitter. It is in Dublin, and it boasts a variety of hand-dyed yarns and workhorse yarns, and some that I knew and a lot that I didn't. And I may be going back and ordering a sweater quantity of something else because I didn't find anything else on our travels. So Saturday evening, June 1st, we checked in to the trip, and the next morning we were off to the races. We ran in Phoenix Park, which is a park in Dublin, and it was a lovely, pretty flat run. Probably the most exciting thing is that there is a whole herd of deer living in the park, and we got to see them kind of move across the field as we were running. The trip was actually about 220 of us, so that's a lot of runners. And we had a lot of people who do Ironmans and all kinds of adventure racing, so I was clearly not in the majority there. I did finish not quite last on a technicality. A few racers missed the final turnoff to go through the final flags and just went back to the parking lot. And so, and they got yelled at and had to go through the final flags, but we actually made it through the final flags before them. So that was that night, and then we went out through Galway up to Westport, or right around Westport, and we stayed at this amazing place called the Delphi Resort. And it is kind of an adventure resort out in the middle of nowhere. They have all kinds of things like ropes courses, kayaking, and they've got a million hills and sheep, and it was amazing. The next day's run was actually trumping up a 1,000-foot mountain right outside, and in the wet and mushy bog. So it was a hard trip. Took me about 3 hours to complete. We had to get up the side of the mountain, kind of over the top where you could see the view, including the ocean, and then all the way back down, and then I think it was gratuitous, but through basically a mud run. And so we did that, and then we spent the afternoon just kind of relaxing and overcoming jet lag. The next day we went on a run. The next day was probably my favorite run. We went through the national park in the Connemara area, And basically we ran on a trail for maybe a mile or two, and then the last several miles were like through sheep fields. And I believe that a large chunk of the area that we ran through is public land, but there were also like sheep pens, and we had to keep getting up and over sheep fences and various places, like various stairs and bridges and things, but basically I was up close and personal with millions of sheep, and it was amazing. I took lots of photos. They are on my Instagram. Sadly, I think most of the sheep that I saw were being raised for meat sheep and not fleece. It's kind of interesting. There are a few conflicting things that I'm hearing in the world right now. Wool prices are going up, and that is because the demand for wool is huge right now, not only for the crafting industry, but for in things like athletic wear and shoes, and a lot of the Chinese manufacturers who are manufacturing clothing and, well, apparel and footwear are using wool in their products. And so there is a shortage of wool. That said, basically what I heard, not so much in Ireland, but definitely throughout Scotland, is that prices for wool fleeces have completely, the bottom has just dropped out of them. And so quite a few of the shepherds that would have been raising for fleeces were getting so little money for the fleeces that they're now primarily raising sheep for meat and then selling them off that way. So that explained some of why I did not find as much yarn as I wanted to in Scotland. I will say that we went in through Glasgow, not Edinburgh, and we spent most of our time on the Isle of Skye, and I know that there is at least one natural dye workshop on the Isle of Skye, but I would say most of the places where we went, where I inquired about yarn shops, there either wasn't yarn or it was all imports, and I found one place where it was all imported acrylic. So in general, I was not too overwhelmed for choice in wool, which I thought was sort of interesting, especially given what I was hearing from our guides. So that was day 3. Let me take a sip of tea because my throat is pretty dry. Day 4, we went to, let me think about this, we went to the Cliffs of Moher, and then we proceeded down to the south, and we went to Killarney, where we stayed for a couple nights. And we did a couple runs down there in some parks. Nothing super challenging. We were supposed to run at the Cliffs of Moher, which is just this amazing sheer cliff face, and we were not able to. I don't know whether it's that we didn't get the permits or exactly what, but we didn't, and it was actually a nice day of rest. I was ready for it after 3 days of racing. And then, excuse me. After a couple nights in Killarney and some runs out there, we went back through the Wicklow Mountains and Glendalough, and that was absolutely beautiful. I did not do the run there because it was up the face of a mountain, and it was pretty steep, and because of the way the schedule was laid out, the timing was such that I was not going to finish in time for the buses to leave. And while they would have waited for me, I just decided to be the responsible one and not start if I couldn't finish. So that afternoon, actually that was the last run day, and I stayed in the inn and I knit, which was absolutely lovely. And there were actually more people than me that skipped the last day for mostly the same reasons. So there were sort of the slow bunch we gathered in the bar. We saw tons of sights. We got to do lots of sightseeing and eating and ice cream, and I took tons of pictures. They are on Instagram, and I'm working on a Flickr album, so I will share those with you. But that was pretty much our time in Ireland. I will say that the last thing that we did was on Saturday, June 8th. We had a final party at the Guinness factory, the Guinness storehouse in Dublin, which was amazing and lovely. And I am not much of a beer drinker, but actually Guinness in Ireland is pretty tasty. And the other thing that I learned is they serve it now. A lot of people ask for it with a little bit of black currant. And so they put a little bit of black currant cordial in it, and it just kind of takes the bitter edge off, and it is absolutely lovely. So I can highly recommend that. That is primarily what I drank while I was there. I also drank some strawberry lime cider, which technically was Swedish, but it was offered pretty much everywhere, and there were a number of delicious ciders on tap. So that gets us through June 8th. Around June 8th, I started to develop a head cold, which you can now hear. I didn't feel too bad except for just a couple days, but I have been kind of, my sinuses have been going crazy, and I have a little bit of a cough associated with that. And actually, I'm going to go to the doctor later this week if it doesn't stop, because I'm starting to think maybe it's turning into a sinus infection. But the first week I was pleasantly illness-free, and honestly, I think I just caught it from the plane. There were a bunch of people who came down with stuff, but it was all like head cold, so it wasn't terrible. The weather in Ireland was absolutely beautiful. We were supposed to have rain the entire time we were there. We had sunshine almost the entire time we were there. If it rained, usually it would just kind of drizzle for a little while and then it would stop, which was absolutely amazing. The second part of the trip was actually only 4 days, and my husband and I, Wes and I, went over to Scotland because we were already there, and Wes's family dates back through Scotland way back. They've been in the US for quite a few generations, but Cameron is originally of Clan Cameron, and so we decided to go to Scotland. We flew in through Glasgow. We got in late on Sunday. We stayed at the Millennium Hotel, which is kind of famous for being the site where in World War II, some of the ending accords that were signed in World War II, it actually wasn't signed by the president there, but he sent a delegate, and they were signed at the hotel that we were at. So that was kind of interesting. And we stayed on St. George Square, or sorry, not St. George Square, George Square, which is an area in the, it's sort of a cross between the older part of town and the modern part of town. Like, there are a lot of older buildings, but a lot of them have also been modernized. And we were right near where the war memorials were, and memorials to Queen Victoria rode through her coronation in Glasgow. So there were all kinds of statues and all kinds of history. We didn't have a ton of time to explore it because early the next morning we were picked up on a tour, and we basically spent the remainder of the time going through Scotland, and then we spent a couple nights out on the Isle of Skye, which was absolutely fabulous. Highlights included we got to take the Jacobite train over the Glenfinnan Aqueduct, which is where the Harry Potter, the Train to Hogwarts, is filmed over that bridge. We got to see all kinds of waterfalls, rugged cliff sides. Part of Scotland is volcanic, or was created in volcanic rock. So the island is, or Scotland is very different in terms of some areas are really kind of soft and rounded, and some of the areas are very sharp and jutting. But we kind of went all over the Isle of Skye, and then on the way back we went through Loch Ness. We saw some castles. It was a delightful tour. It was a little bit less do-it-yourself than our previous tour had been. There was certainly no running or any of those kinds of things, but a few days of visiting and vacation were very nice. We stayed in this beautiful little bed and breakfast in the Isle of Skye that had a gorgeous view of the Skye Bridge at sunset, and so it was an amazing trip, even if I didn't come home with a ton of yarn. So we got home on Thursday, this past Thursday night. We got home at midnight. Our luggage did not arrive with us, and Wes has now come down with my cold. So we spent the weekend just kind of hanging out. I did some crafting, and today it was back to work for both of us. It has been a busy day. Work seemed to go okay while I was gone. I did not check in much at all, which was absolutely fabulous. I had a ton to do today when I came back, and I am also going to TNNA, which is the National Needle Arts Association summer show in Cleveland this coming weekend. So I am prepping for that. If any of you are attending, I will be there on Saturday and Sunday, and I hope to see you. I am going for business, but it will be fun. It's my first TNNA. I've never been before, and I am excited about going. So we are 15 minutes in and I am just getting to the crafting content. I am sorry for that, but I hope you enjoyed a little bit of an update. I will put a link in the show notes to my photos, and you can check. I was doing Instagram stories almost every day, but I added all of my Ireland and Scotland photos to some highlights. So if you are interested in seeing them, they are there for you. So let's get into the regular show. Today I am drinking fruitcake black tea from my local tea market. It is an odd choice for this time of year, but I pulled out a project bag and started working on a project, and it smelled great, and this was in there. So I believe this is from, excuse me, that was me kind of trying to laugh. I believe it was from this past winter. Probably leading up to the holiday season. Tea Market is my local tea store, and they usually do 4 seasonal teas, so it was probably like the October, November, December, which is why fruitcake actually makes sense, and it is delicious. So I'm going to take a few more sips and give my voice a rest for just a second. I'm drinking in my Hoops and Yo-Yo mug. Okay, let's talk about the knits. Before I left, I finished my night shift, which is a shawl by Andrea Mowry, Drea Renee Knits, out of All My Handspun. I showed it to you. I kind of talked about it ad nauseum, but I blocked it. And so I wanted to show it to you blocked because it is so, so pretty. And I took photos today, and you can't even see all the lovely photos, but it blocked out to a wonderful size. And it just looks like a rainbow of color, and I am super, super, super pleased with it. And it actually, I'm a little bit late for Pride, but it actually would work for Pride because it is just a gorgeous gem-toned rainbow. I really, really enjoyed knitting this. I don't think I used as much yardage as I thought I was going to. I don't know if that's because I knit it on the needle size called for, so I don't really know why that is, but I have tons left over, and I think I'm going to try and perhaps knit the sweater, the cropped sweater, which I don't remember what it's called. It might be Shifty. And I actually have some burgundy spun up, so I'm wondering if some of the lighter colors in this would be good with the burgundy for a sweater. So I'm thinking about that. I'm putting a pin in it. I have lots and lots to knit right now, and I really don't have time to cast on another sweater, but I am thinking about it for the leftovers. So that is done and dusted. I just wanted to show that off now that it's blocked. Let's talk about what I knit while I was gone and what I'm knitting now. So I took a ton of sock yarn with me, hoping to knit lots of socks on the trip, and I did not entirely, but I did some. The first set of socks that I had hoped to knit was out of some yarn from a friend of mine for my birthday, and I apologize for the sniffling. I am just, getting through it because that's what I do. The yarn is from Mustache Yarn, and it was a gift for my birthday, and it is called 10 Days of Fiesta, which is her San Antonio inspired colorway. Mustache Yarn is famous for dyeing self-striping yarn, and she also does perfectly matched skeins, so you can have perfectly matched socks. So like she'll do a skein of sock yarn but divide it into 2 balls, and they are perfectly matched so that your socks will perfectly match. I think I stated before I left that I wanted to knit some shorty socks in this for me so that I would have enough left over to knit socks for Roxy and Miles. Excuse me. And I managed to knit my first sock. I basically knit this on the plane on the way over, and the first day or so we were there, I did a very, very short cuff and heel in some contrasting purple that was dyed by a friend of mine, and I managed to get all 10 stripes in there plus a few extra. And so it is the perfect little shorty sock for me. I know it looks tiny. It is just, that's all I wanted because I have 1 pair of shorty socks and I wear them all summer long. And so I decided I needed more shorty socks, and why not do it with striping? My plan is to hopefully do, I need to do the second one for me, but then hopefully do socks for the kids out of this as well, and use either the purple or something else so that I can kind of get my maximum bang for my buck with these, and we can all have beautiful stripy socks. So this was a pleasure to knit. I'm sure it will be a pleasure to wear. I've woven all the ends in. I have not even started the second one yet. So there you have it. The next pair of socks that I decided to knit, socks I mostly knit on my way home. So I guess I just decided that socks were for flights, and the rest of the time I worked on something else, which I will show you. On my way home, I knit Roxy a pair of socks out of my leftover yarns. This is the Boca Chica yarn from A Good Yarn Sarasota, and it is the pink is Duval Street, and the multicolor is Rainbow Reef. And I just did contrasting heels and toes, and I almost entirely used up the hot pink, and I have just a little bit left of the variegated. These are just, you know, short socks with a, they're just, I think they were about 50 stitches, and then I just did a short row Fish Lips Kiss heel. And so those are done and ready for her for the fall. And as soon as I finished those, I decided I needed to cast on a pair for, and I finished those on one of my flights. And as soon as I finished those, I decided I needed to cast on a pair for Miles, and I knit him a green sock out of the green yarn that I had knit my Pebbles and Pathway socks. I don't remember what the yarn is, but it's kind of a sturdy, it's probably superwash, and it's kind of a fun green color. And I knit all of this, and then I knit, I started the second one, and I think I got to where the heel is, and I ran out of steam. So 3.5 socks, not bad for a 8-hour flight. And I just ran out of steam and my hands hurt and I was just done. And by that time I had been up almost 24 hours, so I was just done. So I still need to finish that other one for him. I probably have enough green to do a pair for Roxy as well, which is great. And then I need to finish up the stripes and then figure out if I'm going to do any more pairs for the kids. Miles might get one more pair because I think Roxy has one more pair than he does. So we'll see. But so 3.5 socks. So 1 sock for me, 3.5 children's socks on the trip. So not great, but not terrible, and not bad plain knitting. The second thing that I worked on while I was gone, and I showed you this, and I made an amazing amount of progress on this, is am I in the middle of a row? Oh, I am, aren't I? Ugh, figures. And I'm not close enough to finish it, so, well, maybe I am. Okay, I'll talk about this. So a while back, I was inspired by Adrian of Hello Yarn, who knit, I think I did this the last time too. That's really funny. I had to knit something the last time. A while back, I was inspired by Adrian of Hello Yarn because she had spun some lace weight singles out of a bump of her fiber, and she had knit a dotted raise, which is a shawl by Stephen West. It is a garter knit shawl with some short rows and his kind of rays, which are yarn overs that create sort of what looks like rays in the fabric. And I fell in love with it immediately, as I do with a lot of what Adrian does. I'm such a copycat. And actually, of course, she always, when she does these things, she sparks a bunch of these. There are a million people knitting these now because of hers, because it was so gorgeous and inspiring. And I went and looked, and I didn't have time to spin anything, but I did have a bump of fiber that I had spun into lace weight singles for something else. And I decided to repurpose it for this. So it was a Julie Spins braid, and it went from kind of a fiery orangey peach all the way through purple and then brown and black, and it was just a beautiful braid. And I spun it completely as is. I started at the center and I spun it outward, and so it's vaguely kind of it's not exactly a gradient, but it's vaguely a kind of moves from orange all the way through to those other colors. And I was right, it's coming out beautifully. And actually, I am on my last repeat. So I got a fair amount of work done. I will show you in just a second. I left with, technically, it was one skein. Her skeins are jumbo size, so it was about, I'm going to say 5.6 ounces. Might have been a little over 6 ounces. And what I estimated was over 800 yards. And it was wound into 2 balls because I had to break the skein once. I think I was doing it on I think I did it on my Ashford. I didn't spin the singles on my e-spinner, so I had to break the skein in the middle. And so this is what I have so far. So I had 2 balls, and as I said, it starts in the orange. And the shawl is very shallow on one end and very large on the other end because of the short rowing. and you'll recognize it. Stephen West has quite a few patterns that look a little bit like this. It reminds me a little bit of the Exploration Station, which is where he kind of started playing with some of these, like the yarn overs and the short row wedges. So it starts in the orange and goes through to reds and browns, and then goes through to pinks and purples. And then now you can see I am in the brown and purple and black and dark sections, and it's all bunched up on the needle, so it's a little hard to see, but this is my dotted rays. And so it is garter stitch. It should grow quite a bit. I don't know that I'm going to block it for sure because I really like the fabric. But if I do block it even just a little bit, I know it will grow. And basically I am down to this. So I haven't weighed it. I would guess it's, well, I'm not even going to hazard a guess. I'm in a purple section now, and then it really goes into like a dark brown and black. And what I need to do is I'm fairly early on in this repeat. It's basically done in short row wedge sections. So I still have a ways to go on this particular section, but I don't think I'll have enough to do another section. And the edging is an I-cord, bind off to match the I-cord at the top. So I do need to save enough to do that. So since I can't just literally stop anytime, I am going to probably stop after this repeat. That makes it somewhere between the size small and large in the pattern, because I finished the, I think I'm like one repeat more than the small size, but I'm basically just going until I can't do another full repeat. And I'm pretty sure that's after this one. So this is my dotted rays, which means I probably knit at least 600 yards into this while I was gone, and maybe more. And I hope to finish that in the next week or two before the month is over. I would love to have that be part of, well, I mean, it'll be part of Stash Dash for a while, but I am just absolutely in love with the way this came out. And this is all Julie Spin's beautiful, beautiful dyeing. So I look forward to being able to take pictures with it not all bunched up on the needle so you can see how glorious these colors are. Part of the reason that I just kept knitting on this was because I just kept wanting to see the colors change. And this is... I don't know if I'll make this particular one again, but this is not the last time I will do a garter stitch kind of hand spun single or something like this, because I always forget how stunning my hand spun can be, and just how amazing with a dyer sense and some nice spinning work and a fairly simple pattern, you can really create something that's stunning. So that is what I'm working on there, and basically I'm using it as a carrot and stick to get through some obligation knitting that I'm working on, but I hope that I will be finishing that soon. I may take it with me to TNNA this weekend because I do have some time in airports, and the long rows are kind of nice, and I don't really have to, I mean, I have to count a little bit, but at this point I've pretty much got the pattern memorized. So that is what I worked on while I was gone. I did start one thing that I showed you right before I left, and now that I have come home, I'm kind of back into accelerated mode, trying to finish it before the end of the month, because I agreed to review it. And that is the Kramer Yarns Tatami Tweed. And I showed you this before. This is a DK weight yarn. It is a tweed. It's cotton and acrylic, I believe. It's 45% cotton, 55% acrylic, and it is by Kramer Yarns. It is in the colorway Loganberry, and each skein is 3.5 ounces, 100 grams, approximately 250 yards. And I am knitting something called Opportune, which is a kind of a lacy sweater pool cover-up that was designed by Emily Ringelman for the summer issue of Knitty. So it is a free pattern. And I think I've showed you a little bit of, so here is the yarn that I am using. It is kind of a dark pinky berry color, and then because it is tweed, you can see there are flecks. First of all, the yarn is plied, and it's got like two separate colors in the ply. One is a little more purple, one is a little bit more pink. And then it has also got the tweedy flecks, which is the orange, and it looks like white and maybe yellow, and maybe a little bit of blue. I don't know. It's a really pretty yarn. And the top is knit in pieces, and I don't feel like I'm giving a lot away because it is a free pattern on Knitty, so you can see it. Anyway, so it is knit in 2 fronts and a back, and then assembled, and then there's a hood and some other details that are put on. I started, before I left, one of the fronts, and I finished it a day or two after I came home. I am sort of working in an in-between size. All of the sizes are a little bit large. They're intended for a lot of positive ease because this is kind of a pool cover-up. The suggestion was that it can be kind of a hip length cover-up, or if you want to make it a little bit longer, you can get a couple extra skeins of yarn, and her advice is to make it 8 to 10 inches longer. I decided that I wanted it a little bit longer, but not quite as long as that, so I added approximately 4 inches to mine, and I did order an extra skein of yarn. Kramer was very generous in offering us as many skeins as we needed to complete the project, and because I'm a slightly smaller size, I could ask for an extra skein. So this is the first half. It is kind of just a ladder, kind of a lattice lace, and it's got some garter stitch edging at the top and the bottom. And I started the second front yesterday or the day before, and I think I'm maybe half done, maybe a little bit less. I haven't counted recently because I'm just going to count and do the same. Basically, I measured the other one, and then on this one, I counted the number of repeats of the pattern. It's a 4-row pattern, so it's a pretty simple repeat, and I'll just count the number of repeats and make this one the same, and then just do the shaping the opposite. And then I'll have the back, and then all the detailing. So my hope is that I can finish this front in the next day or two, and then maybe take the back with me to TNNA, so that then I can just do all the finishing work next week. You know me, I'll probably throw extra knitting in my suitcase, because why not? And I am going to a knitting function, and the way my flights are, I have a layover, and I come home kind of late on Sunday, so I probably will have a few hours to kill. So that is what I am working on now. As I said, Opportune by Emily Ringelman. It is a pattern in Knitty, and the called for yarn is Kramer Tatami Tweed or Tatami Tweed DK. I am enjoying working with this yarn. I wasn't sure how I would feel about a cotton and an acrylic. And the nice thing about this yarn is that I get the soft feel of the cotton. It's super, super, super soft. But I think the acrylic is helping it not be quite so rigid. So I do not... it doesn't make my hands tired the way working with cotton sometimes does, because cotton has no give. The acrylic gives it a little bit of give. Now, I will say that I particularly noticed when I was binding off on the top seam here that I had to be really, really careful not to bind it too tight, because it is a cotton yarn and therefore it does not have a lot of give. So I did have to be really, really careful in binding it off. But in between the lace patterning and the yarn itself, it actually is pretty squishy, and there's enough give that my hands do not hurt working on it at all. And it really has a lovely hand. I think this is going to be, I selected this color because I wear a lot of jewel tones, and I really think this is going to be like the perfect throw it on over a t-shirt and jeans through the summer, and kind of keeping me warm in front of my computer in my, it can get kind of can get kind of chilly in my office because I'm right near one of the vents for the air conditioning, and we have to keep the air conditioning going because otherwise it's like super hot and humid and sticky. And so having this will be just a nice like thing to throw over whatever I'm wearing. So this is primarily what I will be working on this week, and hopefully maybe finishing the dotted rays. And those are the 2 projects that I really want to complete by the 30th of June, and today's the 17th, so I'm hoping I can get it done. And I keep forgetting I actually have one more weekend after this one. Sorry, I'm going to take my sweatshirt off because I'm warm now. I keep forgetting that I actually have one more weekend after this one before the month is over. So lots of good knitting to come. I have some more sample knitting that I'm going to be doing. The yarn arrived for me to do the kids' sweaters. I have review yarn. Next month is Tour de Fleece, which means I want to spin a ton, so I don't know where the knitting is going to fit in. But I have the kids' winter gear and more socks and more things that I want to knit for myself. So, sip of tea, and then let's talk about knit-alongs and prizes. Let's See if I can power through just a few more minutes before my voice goes. Okay. I do not have any spinning to show you. I also did not bring any spinning because I do not plan to spin this week because I am getting ready to leave town and because my schedule, I'm catching up from work and preparing presentations for work, and so I am not planning to have any free time this week. So, no spinning content. The current craft along in the group is the Summer Garment Make Along, and that ends on the summer solstice, which is this Friday, June 21st. I am pleased to see, I counted photos, and I think we have, oh, now I can't even remember. I think it's over 10 at this point, finished objects, which is really, really exciting to me because I didn't know if anyone would craft along with me. And there are some beautiful, a lot of like shells and tees summer sweaters, but there have also been some socks and some shawls and some really beautiful things in there. So you have until the 21st to finish your crafting, and because I am leaving town on the 21st to go to TNNA, and I will not be back till the late Sunday the 23rd, you have until Monday the 24th to post your photos. Or I should say like probably midnight the 23rd, like post them Sunday night, because when I get back Monday, I'm going to draw 4 prizes. I do not know how Jocelyn and Diana are going to do their prizes, but I'm going to draw from anyone who posted finished object pictures in the thread. I did not set up a separate thread, so you can just post them in the regular thread. Be sure you post them in there. Finished means you're done with the knitting. If you have ends to weave in, if it still needs blocking, that's okay. Finished means you are done with the knitting and seaming and sewing on buttons, and you know, like you can weave in a few ends and you can wash it and block it, but it should be relatively ready to wear. Take a picture, pop it in there, and I will draw 2 prize winners. I had stated at the very beginning of this craft along, which feels like forever ago, it was at the spring equinox, I had stated that I would offer 2 hand-spun prizes. So these are my standard format prize. I'm going to show you 2 braids of fiber. If you win, and I will be drawing by random number generator on Monday the 24th, you have the following options. 1, you can have the fiber. If you are a spinner and you would love to spin it for yourself, I would love nothing more than to send you some beautiful fiber. 2, if you do not spin, you may ask me to spin it for you. You need to give me a couple weeks to do so, because if there are 2 of you and you both ask me to spin it and it takes me a week per braid, it's going to take me a couple weeks to get those done. However, I will spin it for you. I cannot really take requests in terms of like how thin to spin it or what weight or what you want to do with it or blah, 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 because I don't spin that way and I'm not super consistent on that. I spin it the way the fiber tells me it wants to be spun. Usually that results in a default sport weight around 3 or 350 yards, give or take. I picked 2 braids. It will be kind of a first come, first serve on choosing those. So, 2 braids. You can have the braid as the fiber, so you can spin it yourself. I can spin it for you. You have to give me a couple weeks. Third choice, if neither of those braids appeals to you and you do not want me to spin you either of those braids, you may take a look in my shop. If you find a skein that you would like in my shop, I will send it to you as your prize. So, I will pick 2 winners from everyone who is submitted. I am so excited that you participated. Thank you for joining in this craft along. I've had a blast and it's been fun getting to know Jocelyn and Diana. They are Northern Knits podcast. If you have not checked them out, please do, because they make me laugh. They are very, very funny, and I have a couple episodes to catch up on, and I know they're doing prizes in their group, so if you join their group and post your finished objects in there, you may have a chance to win prizes over there as well, and any of their viewers are welcome to enter into mine as well, but that is what we will do. So post your photos by June 24th. I will announce winners, and we'll go through the steps of whether you want to spin it yourself, you want me to spin it, or you just want to pick a ready-made skein from my shop. Okay, awesome. That ends June 21st. So let's talk about what's coming up next. The biggest thing that is coming up next is Tour de Fleece. I did discuss this before I left. I started a team before I left. Many of you have joined my team. Anyone is welcome to join my team. Unfortunately, prize winners can only be spinners because this is a spinning event. So as much as I try and be multi-craftual, you have to spin something to be a part of this event. How you spin it, I do not care. You can spindle, you can charka, you can I have no idea how else you would spin it. You can spin on a wheel, you can spin on an electric wheel, anything you want, but you do have to spin. Only rule is you have to be a member of the group to win a prize. Come join us in the team thread, which is in the Corner of Knit and Tea group. It is flagged and stickied. You don't have to post in there, but the more you post in there, the better the chance you'll win prizes. Usually what I do is I do random number draws once a week on all the chatter posts, and then I do a couple prizes at the end of the tour based on everybody posts how much they spun and whatever, and I do a random number draw for anybody who participated on the team. So basically, the more you chat, the more chances you have to win, and so that encourages you to spin and share with us and cheerlead for other people, but it is up to you. The tour is what you make of it. You can set your own goals. I typically watch the tour and do not knit that much and spend most of my time spinning, but if you want to spin 5 minutes a day or 10 minutes a day, that is up to you. There are no fiber requirements. You may double, triple, quadruple dip. You may be on as many teams as you want. Be sure to pay attention to their rules, because just because I don't have any real rules, it doesn't mean other teams don't. As far as I'm concerned, you can double, triple dip for anything, but don't yell at them that I said that, because that's their team. I don't know. I'm just babbling now. So, join the group, because you have to be a member of the group to win prizes, and spin with us. It is one of my favorite times of the year. I have no idea what I'm spinning. I started to think about that today. I feel like I lost half of June not being here, so I have a lot of work to do. I can't decide if I'm going to pull out, I have a couple patchwork kits from Hello Yarn, which is she takes all her fiber odds and ends and puts them in 1 pound bags. So I might spin one of those. I might spin a few for the shop. I have no idea. I have no possible idea. So I need to figure that out. I also need to pull a bunch of bags of fiber as prizes. Usually I give away about 5 bags of fiber, 6 bags of fiber during the tour. I don't spin those for you. You spin those for yourself, because you are a spinner. So you will get good fiber. It's usually Hello Yarn, Southern Cross Fiber, Julie Spins, a variety of things from my collection. Okay, last discussion point, and then I really am going to keep this under 45 minutes. I swear, we're at 41:37. July. I have talked before about doing a Christmas sock knitting in July. Last year I hosted that, and I had a great time, because I never end up knitting my Christmas socks before Christmas. This year I have made too many commitments in July, and between Tour de Fleece and all of the knitting commitments that I have to finish, I will not have time to knit a pair of Christmas socks in July, which really annoys me, because that means I'm probably not going to have Christmas socks this year. That said, if there are any of you out there who have been looking forward to knitting Christmas socks in July and would like me to do the knit along, I would be happy to do the knit along if there are people who are interested in participating. Maybe I'll start a pair, but probably not, because I still have to knit all the kids' socks, and so I'm probably not going to let myself indulge in that unless I somehow manage to get through all of my other knits. But because of sample knitting and reviews and kid sweaters and Tour de Fleece, I cannot see it happening. So, leave me a comment here on Instagram, leave me a comment here on YouTube, or on Instagram, or on Ravelry in the group. Let me know if you would like to do the Christmas in July socks. If I have, 5 people who want to do it, that is critical mass. I will go ahead and do it, and I will give away a yarny prize for that, and maybe that will be the yarn from Ireland. If not, I will just hold on to it, and we'll do a different knit along. So, I think that's it. It's 43 minutes. I am pooped, and my voice is about to give out, so let's call that quits for today. Thank you so much for joining me, especially for a long episode. I'll put links in the show notes to photos if you want to see more about my trip. And thank you so much for listening to me and for waiting for me to come back. And I hope that you have a lovely week. It will not be as long until I see you again, because I will see you next Monday. And until I see you then, happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping. And I'll see you next time. Bye.